You know her as the press secretary to President Donald Trump. I just know her as the youngest of my 3 children and mother to 3 of my 6 grandkids, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Please welcome her. Well, thank you. Obviously, you're not at the Red Hen restaurant in Virginia right now.
Slightly different crowd that I'm used to. It's a little more welcoming than the daily briefing. I feel like maybe I should quit now while I've still got people on my side.
This audience was so wired up, if we hadn't have stopped them, we'd have run out of time for the show. We have never had anyone, honestly, that has received such an incredible, warm reaction. And I'm happy that you're getting it here.
Probably doesn't hurt that it's my dad's show, and I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't bribe everybody in the audience before I came out, too.
Yeah, your checks will be in the lobby right after the show, so I'm going to have a little fun with you tonight.
Oh, good.
I promise I'll be a lot easier on you than Jim Acosta from CNN. That much I can assure you. Tell us what happens just before the briefing, before you walk out there, which, by the way, is almost always later than it's supposed to be, and you can explain that, too. What's going on back there behind that press stage?
Well, for starters, I'll apologize for my tardiness. My dad's the most punctual person I've ever encountered in my life, and he regularly lectures me about being late, despite the fact that I'm 36 years old. That's usually the first critique I get, is that I was late again. But just before I go out, I spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours with my team, prepping, going over questions we think may ask, and then the final few minutes just before I go out, I do a quick devotional just to kind of give myself a couple of minutes of quiet time, get my head in the right place, and then I usually, it's time to roll the dice and see what happens and go out there.
What devotional book is there a particular one that you found helpful?
I do Jesus Calling. I've been the White House press secretary for just a little over a year. And it's short, it's to the point, and every day it seems to be perfectly fitting for whatever's going on in the world, which is pretty incredible because there's usually a lot going on in our world.
Does the president ever call you in just before a press conference and say, now here's what I want you to make sure you say?
Certainly. Again, my job isn't to speak on behalf of myself or to talk about my own personal feelings about things, but it's to go out and to give his message and try to explain his policies, and I do that the best I can every day. And so the most important time that I have is getting that information from the president, usually sometime in that 2-hour time block. And as I think everybody in the country knows, and one of the reasons that he's president is because he has some pretty strong opinions.
You think?
And he's very
I haven't noticed that.
He's very happy to share those and let me know before I go out. But it's one of the most important times that I have during the day, and part of the preparation is making sure I understand where he is at that moment so that I can do my best to try to relay it to the American people and the folks in the room.
You know, you just said something I think a lot of people may not fully understand. Your job is not to go out there and express what you think, what you feel, what you believe. Your job is to represent the president, the White House, and the administration.
Absolutely. Certainly, I think it would be very hard to do my job if you didn't believe in the policies that we were pushing forward. The president has been extremely conservative since taking office, and so if you didn't have the same feelings on those topics, it would be a lot harder. And I'm very proud of the year and a half that he's been in office and a lot of the great things that we've accomplished, and certainly think that our country is infinitely better today than it was a year and a half ago when we first got started.
Well, there are a lot of people whose paychecks are better. There are companies who are expanding. Just this week, we found that youth unemployment is at a low over the past 52 years. So more young people are employed than in the last 52 years. I mean, those are pretty strong numbers. And, you know, how people can say he has nothing to do with it. If he didn't, then how come it wasn't happening before he came?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest untold stories that has happened over the last year and a half is it's not just that we have a strong economy, but we have a booming economy that is getting stronger every day. And it's not just in one sector, but it's across the board. In every metric that you look at to determine whether or not we have a good economy, it's doing this. And that is 100% due to the leadership and the policies that the president's put forward, whether it was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, whether it was deregulation, a focus on actually making our country energy independent. All of these things have created an environment that has allowed our economy to thrive. And I think it's one of the single greatest stories that the press doesn't want to talk about. And I think that's because it's so good that they don't want to touch it.
You know, I think we've all noticed that that press room atmosphere, let's go back there a moment, isn't always friendly. We've got a little clip. We've got a little clip of a moment in which they were trying to get you to say something, and I want us to take a look, and then I'll get a reaction from you. Let's watch.
The question that
But
I
when
have,
journalists make honest mistakes, they should own up to them. Sometimes, and a lot of times you don't. But there's a difference. There's a very big. I'm sorry, I'm not finished. There's a very big difference between making honest mistakes and purposefully misleading the American people, something that happens regularly. You can't say, I'm not done. You cannot say, that it's an honest mistake when you're purposely putting out information that you know to be false.
I love that clip. You know, sometimes when I'm watching that press briefing, I'm not sure if you're talking to them or if you're talking to your three kids.
Well, I was actually going to say those three beautiful children that you saw earlier, I'm not biased at all, but I think they're pretty perfect. Their behavior is questionable at times, which has been perfect training to be the White House press secretary and to work in that room. And certainly, I think you see a few mom moments and the mom voice come out on occasion.
Do you ever take it personally when the press are just pounding on you? I mean, you know, I'm watching as a father, but you know what I'm usually seeing? I'm watching not the press guy, I'm watching you, and I'm thinking, pal, you have no idea, you're about to get your head handed to you, and then that's what happens. But do you take that personally when they just are coming after you like that?
I try not to. I think my focus is to go out and do my job and do it as best I can. I also have two older brothers that have helped prepare me that as a young kid, and they're more than happy to take credit for it too. They've both told me on numerous occasions that the only reason that I'm anywhere near decent at my job is because they were rough on me as a kid. And so...
and they were, and I can attest to that. I mean, I remember they super glued your fingers together.
It's true.
When you were little.
Yeah.
That was an emergency room trip.
Yeah. We've had a few emergency room stops courtesy of my two older brothers, but
did they make you tough? Is that what kind of gives you that sense of resolve and ability to go out there and just say, you're not going to take this podium away from me?
I think there are a number of things. I think certainly they contributed a little bit to it, for sure.
You've had some very, very big moments that you've lived through, historic moments. The summit in Singapore regarding North Korea. You were literally at the lunch table sitting across from Kim Jong-un. You were in Helsinki with the president, the infamous meeting with Vladimir Putin. You represented the United States along with Ivanka at the Winter Olympics. Look at all these things across the board. We don't have time to mention them all. But what stands out for you as something that you feel like for the rest of your life you're going to deeply cherish as an incredible moment where you just looked around and said, I can't believe I'm doing this?
That's one of the beauties of this job is you have them almost every day. Certainly, the big moments are the ones that everybody remembers. And certainly, I would list all of those things that you just, whether it was Singapore or Helsinki, those are moments I'll never forget. But I think the most important ones for me are the ones of bringing my kids to the White House, watching them run down the colonnade. They were as still as probably they've ever been when they stepped out here on this stage. But getting to see them in that environment and knowing that the work that we're doing in that building is going to make their life better is the most important part of my job, and certainly the most important thing that I do. Everyone knows me as the White House press secretary, and that's an incredible job, and it's one that I cherish and I value and I'm honored to do. But the most important job I have, and the most important job that I will ever have no matter what I do from here, is to be the mom to my 3 kids. And it's the greatest thing I could ever do, and I hope I don't screw it up too much. So far, they've turned out okay.
You know what? I think you are a wonderful mother, a delightful wife to your husband, Brian, and an absolutely amazing daughter. I'm proud of all my kids, and I'm proud of you to be here. But you're not finished. We're going to, I'll put it this way.
I should have known
I'm
I
not
wasn't
done.
off the hook yet.
I'm not finished. See, I'll learn. I'm not finished. Because later in the show,
See, it always comes back to bite you later. You got to be careful.
later in the show, I'm going to have you come back because you got such a great reception. We're canceling a bunch of stuff we had, and you're going to come back, and we're going to talk some more about the personal side, so stay around.